All right. So I guess now you understand what the plan was.
Absolutely. At Colts Law, we talk Indianapolis Colts football.
We're going to stick to what we know, fundamentals and technique, 1% better every day.
What's going on, NFL fans? Because, it's not just Colts out there. It's NFL fans. How was I was going to ask how everybody's, last 48, 24 hours has been, but I understand Loyalist has had a little bit of a personal...
I'll tell you what, as far as family emergencies go, my father-in-law's in the hospital where he needs to be, so all in all, we got through it, so it's been good. Good news coming from the Colts. That always makes things seem to always feel a little bit better. Thank you again, guys.
Joe, how have you been?
Can't complain too much. I'm going around and looking at housing around this area. It's just been busy. Moving is a pain. Well, I'm in the house where I'm eventually going to end up retiring, but it's been busy, but it's been good, a good kind of busy. It's just a lot of stress. Moving, relocating is always a pain in the butt. But things are going as well as can reasonably be expected. And then we got to take the dog to get her groomed today because she was stinky and scraggly. And we got caught in a damn thunderstorm, hail, and bad. Like a whole line of storms that went all the way from like Saginaw all the way down through Dayton. It was wicked. So
yeah, we got that too. That line started off like a blob, and then it became a line right over my city, and my God. Literally all the sirens and stuff started going off, and I'm like, there was nothing on the radar 5 minutes ago. I just checked, and then I look at the radar, and this line just starts appearing out of nowhere, just solid red, right? And I'm like, what in the world? And luckily, and it was like, the alarms were going off because it was like severe, like possible tornadoes, 60-mile-an-hour winds, large hail, heavy rain, all that stuff. And my house, I thought was going to just get blown over. It blew over us and gone. We got maybe 3 drops of rain. But literally like 1 mile away, got like nickel-sized hail and trees and stuff dropping everywhere, and like just downpour of rain. I was like, wow.
Yeah, those things are really unpredictable. When we were up, we were actually just picking the dog up. So we were up in Sandusky, and I'm like, I got to have a place to park this car. I got to get it under something. I look across 250 there, and I'm like, there's one of them old-style coin-operated car washes there. With the spray hose and all that. I dipped right in there. I parked the car. I'm like, because, hey, I knew because I've been through one of those before where they're so unpredictable. You never know. I've seen those things pick up, those big electrical wire spools that they put like the telephone on the telephone poles that hold that wire. I've seen one of those storms pick one of those up and launch it 30 foot.
Yeah.
It can be scary, but everything's cool. There was a tree down right up the street from where my mom's at right now.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Something very similar, talking about storms. I remember, about 20 years ago, I was on the interstate heading south towards Indianapolis, and storms started. We saw it coming. These kind of storms, you see them coming. In the sky. Yeah. And we was like, well, that's going to be kind of bad. And then 5 minutes later, the semi in front of us, the open bed semi trailer, the whole thing just went sideways on the road. I thought he was turning, but he just kept going off the road into the median on the interstate. And I was like, what? And then it just tipped right over, crashed everywhere.
Wow.
My vehicle, I could feel it like sliding as well, and I slowed it down to a darn near to stop, and then the rain started coming down, and it took me about 10 minutes of getting through that before I finally was able to get to an overpass, and we waited it out underneath an overpass. It was bad. Come to find out, it was a tornado that was in that, that caused that. But yeah, it was pretty nasty. You gotta be careful.
Yeah.
In these lands, you gotta be careful of stuff like that.
Yeah, that's like several years ago. I used to drive a 24-foot box truck, and I'll tell you right now, these box trucks, they don't even like strong breezes, let alone, gust and wind and stuff. And I was just north of Dallas, Texas, when they started talking about this tornado and heavy winds and stuff. And I was like, okay, I got to find myself somewhere. And I could not find a single location anywhere. Finally, I got behind this restaurant, and I went in their loading dock because I just had to get somewhere, to take my top heavy vehicle and give me a little bit of hope.
So it was one of them ramp loading docks where you go down and between.
I got in there and I was just like, you know what? I know they're going to give me all kinds of grief, but I was just like, hey, and I was hauling auto parts stuff, so I had a bunch of alternators, so I wasn't worried about the weight of the vehicle, because I was weighed down real good. But man, that top, box truck, it's just like a big old, wall saying, here, come push me around, and stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it got to where it was a little tricky to keep on the road. And I seen a little mom and pop diner, and sure enough, they had a little place where they got their deliveries, and they were getting a delivery of alternators that day.
Ross is in here. He says he's dealing with his family right now, and he'll be on air after a bit. So
cool.
That's all good, Ross. Shout out! I finally have 15 Patreons supporters.
Nice.
When I first started Patreon, I said I was going to start doing live streams when I hit 15. Well, I just hit 15, so that's good. Let's get into the topic, at least the initial topic. The Indianapolis Colts, a lot of news about the Indianapolis Colts over the last couple days. One, the news about Wentz and Nelson, about, that they're actually expecting them to be ready by week 1 now. That's the expectation, so that's huge. And then, of course, the news came out that the GM, Chris Ballard, and the head coach, Frank Reich, was extended on their contracts for 5 more years. And, to me, it felt like a no-brainer, Frank Reich's been dealing with a different quarterback every year since he's been, the head coach. Chris Ballard took over Ryan Grigson and just started building from scratch, basically, and building a team up. And inside this, 4 year span, they've, built a pretty good machine here in the Indianapolis Colts. And it felt like a no-brainer. Like, this is something that, it could have been a 10-year deal on both of them, and I would have been okay with it, because you could go a lot worse than the head coach and GM that the Colts have right now, at least in my opinion. What do you think, Loyalist?
Absolutely. And, Mr. Irsay said it perfectly whenever he sat there and he says, it's not that he's signing these guys just for their football acumen. These are problem solvers. These are guys who don't sit there and start whining or complaining that, and let's be honest, it's not been smooth sailing for Mr. Ballard. You know what I mean? He came in, he hired a coach, that coach didn't show up. It's just been one thing after another. And I'll tell you right now, when he first hired this said coach that I choose not to mention, I was just like, oh man. And
Josh McDaniels, I'll mention
McDaniels,
it.
yeah. I remember.
Man, I wasn't happy, and I wasn't sure if that was me just being anti-Patriots or what, But I just really felt like, and then whenever that fell through, I was just like, I was sort of like, okay, cool. But then I was also like, now what are we going to do? And then whenever it worked out the way it did, I was just like, this guy, this team, I'm not saying that, they've made every decision perfectly, but the big ones they've made very well. And even whenever, like you said, whenever something happens that, your franchise quarterback retires a week and a half before regular season, okay? Your newly acquired quarterback, you know, has a protruding bone show up out of nowhere, I mean, just nothing seems to, really waver with these guys. And I mean, to sit there from a fan base, and listen to them, you see them and they're just like, relax, Chris Ballard, and come on, guys, just relax, and I'm like, and he has really helped me personally because I was one of those overreactors, what I mean? But just over these last few years and stuff, it's like, you know what? I'm fine with it. If these guys come out and say, you know what, the world's flat and we're going to win 6 Super Bowls. I'm not buying 100%, but I'm definitely a lot more willing to believe them now than I was, 4 or 5 years ago.
Well, it's not just Colts fans that I think have a healthy respect for guys like Chris Ballard and Frank Reich. I mean, like Chris Ballard is a really open GM, right? And that's really different in the NFL where, a lot of GMs will kind of send you one way and talk about another and give you not a whole lot, or give you some straight up lies, about stuff. And Ballard is really basically an open, I mean, obviously Ballard and Reich ain't out there, giving away the secrets of the trade or anything of that nature. But what do you think of Chris Ballard there, Joe?
Well, I mean, I'm going to follow up on exactly what you're saying because that's one of the major things that I see with him is how open and how transparent he is as much as he possibly can be. The media availability. And I think a lot of that is for one reason he has to, that's like an obstacle course when you start doing that, because what he's doing, I feel like, is he's addressing the fans more than he is anybody else. Not necessarily that he feels like an obligation to the press per se. It's more, I feel like he does that more for the fan base than he does anybody, because a lot of these guys, they keep their door locked, and you don't hear anything until it actually happens. I mean, look at what we just went through with the whole situation in Green Bay. You had a couple little things slip out about what might potentially be going on up there. But with Chris Ballard, he's always at the forefront of this stuff. And not for nothing, it's another, and Loyalist just touched on this, when you talk about an NFL GM who inherited a not so great situation and then has had like multiple, kind of body blows to his organization, starting with, the major one that sticks out in my mind is, McDaniels. Like, you're going to hire a guy and he's going to say, nah, you know what? I don't feel like it. Just tear that piece of paper up, take me to court, whatever you're going to do. I'm not coming. And then their head coaching search. I mean, because that's a process in and of itself. When you're looking for a head coach, that is a very, and the NFL makes it a difficult process. Well, not necessarily difficult, but it's an arduous task. Because there are qualifiers like the Rooney Rule that you also have to adhere to, which I have no problem with, but I don't think people realize how hard somebody has to work to make the final decision to say, yes, we're going to give this guy the keys to the car and let him drive, and he has navigated all that stuff. He's navigated the situation with Andrew Luck, and somehow managed to keep his footing. And then here we are a year later. They're one game away from the AFC Championship game. They're like a couple of pieces away from the Super Bowl win. So, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I compare him in that regard to a guy like Colbert, in Pittsburgh. They're always in the conversation. They're always in the conversation. Now, he's not nearly as he doesn't give people FaceTime. That's Mike Tomlin's job in Pittsburgh, pretty much. So I give him a ton of credit for being able to manage all those responsibilities. He's fantastic. I'd hire him in Pittsburgh tomorrow if Colbert, wasn't the guy that he is, because Colbert is a great football guy. He has proven over the past 20 years that he's deserving of that vice president's job. And that, they're always relevant somehow. So it's he's that on that level to me.
Yeah.
And another thing is he doesn't he doesn't sit there and just keep himself in a box. You know what I mean? If there's a problem that comes up, and stuff, he doesn't sit there and just think of, okay, what would this team do? I mean, to me, it just seems like he comes up with solutions or ways, whether it's replacing your quarterback or, I've never seen anybody keep as many options and the flexibility in the team. You know what I mean? And understandably so. I mean, because like we said, it's been such a turbulent time, but he always makes these decisions from such a place of character. And, and you hear the players. I mean, today we got to hear an interview from E.J. Speed, and, and he's not, he came into the league hoping to be, a starter and everything. And now he's in year 3 and he's just really starting to get his opportunity to shine and stuff. But the way the Colts deal with it and stuff, you don't hear any of this toxic, oh, so-and-so is not giving me a chance. Or, it just seems like everybody is dealing with this. And like you said, they're such great football guys. It's not like we're talking about, okay, they're just good people. No, they are very intelligent in the realm of football and their positions. Colts are very fortunate in my eyes.
I want to touch on a little bit of something that Joe was talking about earlier with Chris Ballard, and kind of, it seems like he's doing a lot of things for the fans, not necessarily the media. Since Chris Ballard's been in, and you were talking about the Rooney Rule, and we'll get into that, obviously. As a matter of fact, I'll get to that whole situation. That's the reason why we have Frank Reich. They could not talk to Frank Reich because they were in the Super Bowl that year. And, because of, McDaniels saying no, that gave Ballard that little bit of extra time to let the Super Bowl get over with and then talk to Frank Reich. And it's like, I'm glad this happened, because now we got Frank Reich. But to touch on that little base of with the fans, since he's been here, he established a new thing in the media when it comes to the Colts, and that is, a lot of fan base driven things, like with the Next Pick series. He's allowed that to happen, where you could basically kind of get an inside view of the whole draft process, from going out and searching colleges and stuff all the way up to the point where they draft them, in the draft room. And you didn't see that in the NFL before then, 3 years ago. And now you're starting to see other teams start to pick up and do that stuff as well, kind of for their fans. Another thing that just didn't happen until, recently, and that's they're now giving out, press conferences, not just to media, but to content creators like myself. They set these up, the offensive coordinator, defensive coordinators, rookies, player personnel managers, things of that nature, where they set up, YouTubers and podcasters and stuff, and like, we're going to set these up with you because, you've been loyal followers. You guys have a massive fan base as well with the fans. So we're going to set this up, and it looks good for the fan base itself. Ballard has done a lot of really not just likable things, but, kind of trend setting, and when it comes to the NFL and what you have seen in the past as opposed to what you see now. So I could see a lot of stuff that he has established and put in start to grow throughout the NFL, and a lot of other teams start kind of copying. Now, I don't know how, when it comes to being open the way he is and kind of that down to earth, talking to everybody like they're at his barbecue in his backyard. You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
Because that to me, every time he has an interview or a press conference, that's what way it feels like. It feels like we're on a voice call and he's at his barbecue in his backyard. That's just the best way of putting it. But Frank seems to kind of drive off that as well. I mean, now Frank's more optimistic than Chris, but they'll both be like, I've noticed when something happens and it's a bad situation, they'll own up to it. And that's another, they won't lay fingers, like when Andrew Luck just flash retired, right? And he was like, I did not have a secure backup in place at quarterback. That was on me. That's not on the, that wasn't on the coach. That wasn't on it. That was my fault because I need to foresee things like that. And I'm new at this and I'm learning and I'm going to make mistakes, and he says, I make mistakes every day, but I try to learn from them, and that's all you can ask from somebody, and for someone to be open and honest like that, to media and just be like, you know what? Yeah, I'm human. It's kind of refreshing compared to what you're used to seeing out there in the NFL today.
Absolutely. And then I love how he sits there and, like, for example, with Eberflus and Patron. I mean, these guys were hired in underneath the expectations of a particular head coach coming in. And then when the head coach backed out, he's like, guys, you don't have to worry. Okay. And the fact that he went and found a head coach in Coach Reich, who was fine with, could you imagine your first opportunity as a head coach in the NFL, a league that you were a player in, okay. And then you come in and you don't get to handpick your coaching staff. You just sort of sit there and roll with the punches because Chris Ballard says, this is how we're going to do it. You know what I mean? And
we're going to honor it. Yeah.
Yeah. And that is just, there again, guys, I mean, for me, that goes so much further, and the way he handled the whole, when Coach Reich sat there against the Texans, and went 4th and 3 and went and failed and the play did, Ballard didn't sit there and trash his head coach or anything. He stood behind him. He supported him. He said, and the thing was after talking to coach and stuff, he doubled down on it. He sat there and he's like, no, Frank was convicted. This was what he believed, and I'm going to stand by that. And the team base. I mean, he doesn't just use team on the field. He uses his team mentality and his drafting personnel, just in every aspect of this, everything, he's not sitting there with, yes, he takes acknowledgement that he's the final decision or whatever, but he's not sitting there saying, okay, I'm not going to listen to all these people that we're paying buku bucks because their opinion has some validity. They see things that he don't see. And the fact that he's willing to sit there and to listen to all these different voices and then cultivate the best possible answer. And then we sit here and we come up with this, oh, no, I wouldn't do that. You know what? Chris Ballard has got 17, 18, 25, whatever people, not to mention the owner, who are sitting there and giving input into big decisions for a multi-million-dollar industry, or team, I'm super hyped about the fact that we've got these guys through 2026. I'm like you, Law. You know what? They could have given them part ownership of the team, and I'd have been like, let's dance,
What's up, Joe? I know
you. And to touch on what you were saying, Loyalist, okay, you're talking about, and Elo, I mean, you're talking about how he has done these trend-setting things. And I really find it interesting if you look, because he, I think, at the heart of this, realizes that if you lose the fans, you've lost everything. And I think that's because we're ultimately, at the end of the day, we're the ones who are seeking this content. We're the ones who are paying for all this crap, whether that's funneled through ESPN or any of these other big networks. It doesn't matter. And I think he also, to touch on that, realizes that now you're seeing a growing momentum of other types of media outlets other than just major corporate media.
Mm-hmm.
And I almost feel like he's smart enough to say, maybe we need to tap into this a little bit, because this is our business. This is our brand, even though we're under the umbrella of the NFL. This is ultimately, at the end of the day, our franchise and our business. And if you look at, like, Jerry Jones, sorry I had to bring that dude up, but he's made the Cowboys a very valuable franchise based on some of the things he's done from a business perspective, even though he's part of the NFL. And I think you've got a guy like that in Ballard. The other part of this is, Jesus Christ, I just forgot what I was going to say. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I forgot what I was going to say.
Oh, it's all good. It's all good.
Oh shit, the Reich thing about what Loyalist said with him being brought in and then saying, no, you can't just handpick who your coaches are. I think the real irony behind that is that takes a lot of humility from a guy like Frank Reich, who did play in the league, who did, basically he won a Super Bowl as an offensive coordinator, who tailored his offense around Nick Foles to get them the rest of the way, to get to the promised land, so to speak. And what the interesting thing to me about that is, if you look at Philadelphia at the time, Doug Peterson was a high school coach, and he was an Andy Reid guy. He was an Andy Reid guy. So then Reid brings him in as the offensive coordinator. Then they hire him on as the head coach in Philly, and they kind of did the same thing with Peterson. They kind of handled him with kids' look, because Peterson pretty much admitted he really didn't know what he was doing. I mean, he admitted that basically when they were talking about, I forget what the hell video it was that I was watching. It was about, the Philly special and how that whole, year pretty much went, how everything led up to the Philly special, Philly. And how, Doug Peterson. So, I mean, there's a mix of things too. I just think it's really fascinating how, on one hand, right, well, Doug Peterson did play too, but you're the offensive coordinator. Oh, here we go. You're the offensive coordinator for Andy Reid, who was an offensive genius. So you don't have necessarily as much clout as you do, because Andy Reid, everybody who's coached under Andy Reid hasn't really been all that successful. Bieniemy is kind of the same situation. He was a running back coach at Colorado State. I mean, what the hell was the other guy's name? Childress up in Minnesota. He flamed out really quick. So I just think it's really interesting how that dynamic is, and how Reich still had the humility to be able to deal with that situation the way he did. Now, thanks for the pretty picture there, Ross. That's lovely.
Oh, what?
I need to step away for a second. My two male cats are going all alpha on each other. So,
ooh, what kind of alpha is that? Is this kind of like Greek and Roman stuff here?
Yeah.
Probably. Oh, my wife is stepping in.
Great. I think that's like a topping on a gyro or something.
Well, I just made his bust a little bit more realistic. That's all I did. Nothing.
It's funny because he was talking about that himself in the speech. You remember when he was like, they about ran out of material for my head, or my forehead and my neck. Oh.
Yeah, I'm a bad person. It's all right.
No, you're not. That's
funny. It's funny.
That's funny.
I'm not gonna lie.
Denver fans and Colts fans were not very happy about it on Twitter. He's a legend. And I'm like, I'm not disagreeing. I'm just saying, like, I'm just making things more realistic for you.
Well, when they look at your bio and see Patriots, then they automatically
You can't take me seriously already. Can't take me seriously.
Yeah, exactly.
Look at this beard and this goofy face. It's a face made for radio.
So Ross, we were just really we started off talking about the storms that rolled through the area, the really bad storms that rolled through the area, and then basically that we started talking about what the topic was for the video itself. You know, about that Frank Reich, Chris Ballard, the head coach GM, got extended 5 years, and why pretty much we agree that they deserve it, bigger than heck. You know. That's our thoughts. You have any thoughts you want to bring in on that?
Well, see, the thing is about any good franchise or future dynasty, the things you have to consider is how do you use the talent that isn't big name talent yet? Mm-hmm. How do you develop your players? And one of the things I've always respected about, say, like my team, the Patriots, ever since Kraft, Belichick, and Brady became who they were, they started developing talent. Like, a lot of the players they've seen come through those lines. Like, I mean, maybe some not the big name guys, but look at Matthew Slater. Look at Edelman. Look at some of these guys who came up from special teams, and all of a sudden it's like, wow, you're really dynamic. You're willing to do what it takes. We're going to give you a shot. We're going to throw you on offense. And all of a sudden, Edelman is probably like a third-round Hall of Famer who was not even supposed to play in the NFL. Not even supposed to play. You know, I think what gives me flashbacks of that is the Colts organization right now, where we don't need big name talent. We will make you big name talent if you're willing to put in the work. So generally, like, you grab a 4th, 6th rounder, whatever rounder at the end of the day, you're going to develop that. And if he becomes a talent, he's a talent. And I always respect that kind of organization. So hats off to you guys. And I think what they've shown the organization, they deserve those contracts.
Yeah, and to touch on that too, Ross, I mean, it's like, you know, hey, well, the Patriots are a good example of exactly that. Oh, the Oakland can't figure out how to get it done with Moss. Hey, we'll take them. You know, I mean, yeah, sure. Pittsburgh can't figure out how to deal with Brown. Yeah, we'll take them. Yeah, just send them over here. We'll see what we can do with the guy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it was the same. Like another one that stands out to me is Danny Amendola. He got cut his rookie year after training camp in Miami, and they're like, you know, somebody will give you a job. You know, he ends up catching a touchdown pass in the Super Bowl.
Yes, and he's become like a legend. He's not a Hall of Famer by any stretch of the imagination, but he was a very solid slot receiver. Like, again, special teams at one point, and then he decided he was too good for special teams. That's one of the reasons he lost the job to Edelman. Everyone's seen that video with Belichick. It's like, well, he's your competition. He's willing to do special teams to do what it takes. Are you going to respond? And he's like, yeah, you can have it. And it's like, way to compete. Way to compete. And I think the great thing about our organizations, there's probably others, but I don't really deep dive other than the Colts, maybe a bit of the Steelers, because Steelers are someone we play pretty often, and it's good to be in a position to know who you're playing. But at the end of the day, like, the Steelers, like, they have talent. They always have talent. They're always in a spot. The only place I felt like you guys were suffering is Roethlisberger over the last few years. I'm sorry. Like, I know a lot of people respect him. He's that blue-collar guy. And I'll tell you something that's going to bring the biggest heat to me. So Roethlisberger is getting paid way too much money, and that because of that, you can't get more talent. Cam came in on a discount. Because of that discount, we didn't pay him $30 to $40 million. We were able to get him talent and give him an opportunity to show he's still valuable in the NFL. Let me transition to Tom Brady. People are going to hate me for this, and I don't care. At the end of the day, coaches choose what brings the best out of their players. At times, that's being complimentary. At other times, it's showing no compliments and showing they're never up to it. Belichick over the years has complimented him in private, but at the end of the day, what got the best out of Brady was having a chip on his shoulder. So what do you do with a player like that who plays great angry? What do? Don't give him credit all the time. Give him a little rub here and there. Again, coaches are meant to inspire and teach their players, not to hand them out compliments like it's candy. We get into this argument all the time in Patriots Nation, but the coaches will tell you what you need to hear or coach you in a way to make you the most valuable player you can be. But that's why I like the Colts. Yeah.
Each player is different in that aspect, right? I mean, each player is, some players need to be kind of rubbed once in a while. But some players will take that completely wrong and take it personal. Yeah, but you need to treat them a little bit different. Not necessarily, it's just how you handle each individual person, because not everyone's personality is exactly the same. And that is on a coach as well. And not just the head coach, but, your positional coaches and stuff like that, understanding the players they have and coaching them the best way they can.
The reason I can understand Belichick or even any other coach in the NFL is I've been a manager for 20 years, all types of staff, okay? Not one person is the same you'll deal with any day of the week, whether it's customers, employees, or even your owners. One day they might be your best friend. The other day they might be the guy gunning for your job. At the end of the day, you have to treat each person differently because they are different people. And I think over the years, like Belichick to Brady or Belichick to any other player, he's always going to find what is going to give you that fire, what's going to give you that piss and vinegar to make sure you come on that next game and you're throwing darts. Put his job in jeopardy. Like how many times, we might start Garoppolo. It's always a competition. There was never a competition with Brady over the years, but at the end of the day, you have to keep that fire up. And I respect the Colts for developing talent and knowing how to keep them motivated. Much like Tomlinson with the Steelers. Tomlinson's a beast. I like Tomlinson. It's just I think he's been saddled with the wrong quarterback.
Tomlin. But I agree with you on the management thing, because I've been a manager for a hell of a long time. I don't know how, since I was a kid.
Yeah.
And I agree with you 100% on that. And that's where you get into these kinds of discussions. You see it with Ballard. You see it with, but I agree with you 100% on everything you said about Steelers, because I've been one of the biggest critics. I'm one of their biggest fans, but I'm also one of their biggest critics when they are doing dumb shit. Excuse me.
Imagine to a crew if you start complimenting one in front of everyone all the time. There's different atmospheres. Like if I'm working in a warehouse and I'm managing a warehouse, I'm not going to be tossing around compliments because they're going to think you're weak. There's always a different way to manage based on your situation and the people involved. So that's just my take.
You just don't treat people differently in front of other people. If you know player A needs a compliment once in a while to get him to run through a brick wall, you do that in private off to the side, right? Yeah. And you say, "Hey,
you're
look,
doing a great job." But I'm not going to say that in front of anyone.
Exactly. It's the truth, because certain running backs, we'll say you got a running back, two running backs built exactly the same. One person, you might tell them, you're not doing enough. You're not trying hard enough. What the heck is wrong with you? Why can't you get through that tackle? You got to be able to break that tackle. And that'll get him to run through 5 of those guys, right? Yeah. Whereas the other person, you could say something similar to him, but then on the side, you're like, look, I like what you're doing, but you really need to try it this way or a little bit softer way of bringing it to them, because not everybody's the same. Now, this is the NFL, but it's not 1968 anymore either, where where you're like, you know what? If you see a finger, bite it off.
Wish them days would come back.
I actually had some questions lined up for the 3 of you, because I was actually excited for this. Unfortunately, my wife had a bad head cold and her fever just broke this morning. So I was, kind of babying her. I love my wife. So, again, I'll do anything for her. The thing I find interesting is right now, as you talked about the crybabies, what do you guys think about the new NFL taunting situation where it's such softness? What I'm seeing from this, like, again, there's things where it's like, hey, don't pop a guy in the helmet, in front of a referee. That's common sense dictates. But if you make a great play, you should celebrate that. Not necessarily, but within reason.
Yeah, and the thing is, we sit there and we love this game because it's based on passion and aggression.
Yes.
And, you know what I mean? And it's like, okay, we want you to go out and perform at the highest level and stuff, but as soon as that play is over, chill out, be Mr. Metal. And it's like, I don't understand it. And I understand, you want to keep a respect. And I hope that this goes the same way that they did with the TD celebrations. I hope once they realize they take some of that out, that, okay, we overreacted. Let's, that's what I hope is happening or will happen. But like you said, it's just so frustrating because, you sit there and you've got these guys, these young men who aren't just battling to make a team. Sometimes, they're battling just, for their family and everything else. And then whenever they are successful at their goal, or then all of a sudden we just want them to just chill out.
Yeah,
and
but,
I'm all about
but when they get a touchdown, they can do a freaking rowboat. Like, where's the common sense in that? Like, oh, you can celebrate as a team, but if one guy goes, yay, after sacking the quarterback, no, that's taunting.
Well,
and they could throw a guy out of the game for 2 taunting calls.
Yeah, that's BS. But here's the thing, okay? What I don't get is NFL has more trash talk than I think any. Basketball's got a lot of trash talk, but there is a ton of trash talk in the NFL, especially across that line of scrimmage, before the ball snapped. There is doesn't matter who it is. Whoever's lined up in front of you is talking smack no matter what. A lot of times it's the defense and the offense has to take it, because that it is. And
that's what the sport is. Yeah.
Yeah. And now, so like if you're sitting there across from this cornerback, like you're a wide receiver, and the cornerback's like, there's no way, you're not getting anywhere near the ball. I'm going to light you up if you even get close to it. And then you make a big play, catch the ball, run over the cornerback, and score a touchdown. If you turn around and look at that cornerback and say, try it again, that right there is taunting. Bam, 15, and if you do it twice, you're out of the game. That's BS.
But here's my concern, and I think a lot of fans view it this way, is it's opening up another can of worms with referees being able to take over the game like the NBA, where they can change outcomes of games by the most minimal infraction. It's not like they're taking the quarterback's head off, but if they think something is taunting, that's where I think or I feel is where I get annoyed with sports, because if they feel like it's taunting, and that's in the wording, they can throw flags and essentially change the outcome of a game by not actual play on the field. That's my concern.
Well, remember, matter of fact, I think it was against the Patriots. I think it was that year that we went to the Super Bowl and beat the Patriots in the AFC Championship game. And Marvin Harrison caught this ball. And Marvin Harrison was known as the no-nonsense guy. He caught the ball, handed it off to the referee every time. Never talked trash about nothing. He was one of those rare ones in that era, because most of the other guys, a lot of, the TOs and all of them. He caught that ball, double tipped it in the corner of the end zone, was able to get both his feet in and catch the ball and make sure it was a secure touchdown to take the lead away. Gets up, spikes the ball, which everybody else in the NFL spikes the ball. First time Marvin Harrison ever done it, blam, got flagged for it because the referee didn't expect it and caught him off guard. Really? And that's the kind of thing that can happen now at any given time, and you end up getting a player ejected.
Yeah, and I'm all for, I don't want any honey badger chasing down Tom Brady and 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 doing stuff like that. Okay, things. But if you're talking about in the scope of a game, okay. Now I'm not advocating, walk up there and rip a guy's necklace off and stuff like that we have seen in previous years. Okay. I'm really not advocating that. But the thing is it's like when you sit there and you start trying to stifle the passion of a game that, let's be honest, if these guys aren't amped up, passionate, could you imagine the Darius Leonard walking out on the field going, okay, it's time to play linebacker. Who wants to see that? And not only mention, he does that. And for us Colts fans and stuff, you can see the effect of it. You can see the hype and the energy. And then, all of a sudden you start seeing Grover Stewart and DeForest Buckner starting to, and everybody just starts bumping. And that's why you go to every game and you hear this loud music and just, it's all about the energy and the atmosphere. Okay. So as long as you're respectful, as long as you're not sitting there and
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not teabagging the quarterback's head as you sack him. I'm thinking we're pretty okay. What's your thoughts, Joe?
And why not?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Why not? You can't put that on broadcast TV. You can't put that on CBS, though.
Wait a minute.
You can just edit that part of it out, or put a blot over it, but you can't do that. But see, some of this stuff I think has a lot to do with the media, because
and advertisers
and we can't. We don't, and so let's make this crap as vanilla as possible to get it in front of as many faces as we possibly can, without burning down the building. Pretty much. Because this stuff starts in Pee Wee football. This stuff starts among football players in Pee Wee football. You get knocked on your butt, you get up, the next guy's looking at you. And you're like, oh, okay. And you're fighting as kids doing this. And the bigger kid, is going to try to bully the smaller kid. And then the smaller kid's going to get tired of it. And he's going to light the big kid's butt, on fire. And that's the kind of stuff. It starts with the trash talk. That starts in Pee Wee football all the way up through high school, college, pros. How do you expect it to be any different in the NFL, where these guys are fighting over essentially millions of dollars, and they're playing on top of that, and they've got all this pressure on them. They're playing in front of millions of people every week.
What Ross said earlier, you said earlier about teabagging guys, I'll tell you what, had this rule been in and what you're talking about, that Quentin Nelson would have been thrown out of 5 different games in his rookie year. Yeah, am I wrong? It's the truth.
You remember the days of Shannon Sharp, Deion Sanders,
Mm-hmm.
the guys who used to look for a reason to rip the quarterback's head off and then dance over him as they do it. And now we're getting mad about a peace sign during the Super Bowl. I can't. It's always funny these rules seem to come out after a Chiefs game. I don't know. It seems like the golden boy, yet again, of the NFL. Things are happening as soon as it happens to say their golden team, the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, obviously, I get you can't touch the guy. You can't touch someone opposite of you, because that's if the play's over, you shouldn't be touching them. But a little bit of verbal, or a little bit of like Paris Campbell, he got lit up on you guys seen that, right? That was on the thing. Got lit up, got up, and was like, I'm here. I survived it. Blah blah blah. That's basically and got flagged 15 yards for it. Really?
Yes. Yep.
Okay,
Yeah,
so I got a question.
We're taking and we're signing these kids from colleges, okay? These colleges, you look over on the sideline, and they always have these turnover chains and all this other, braggadocious type stuff that these kids, that's what they're for, that's what they're about. That, they want to sit there, or whether you go and you keep track in the locker room, at least in my high school days, we used to keep track in the locker room whenever somebody decleated somebody or something. I mean, this is, we sat there and we're going from, okay, this is, the energy and the feeling. But like I said, to me, very rarely does it get to cross that line. Most of these young men, and I mean, very rarely do you see them step over to where a rule like this is necessary. And then like Joe's point, why are we doing this? Because there's a marketing firm or a group of, deep pockets that are saying, you know what? Sorry. Would you stop already? All right. Well, shoot, what was I saying?
I'm a terrible person. Yes, it's all right.
I know he almost got me real bad.
How do you sit there and you want to take this out of the game? It's just, I mean,
it's just like taking the passion out. It's just like, again, it's good fun, and it's. I love the kids coming out, and these are probably kids who've probably been only watching football for 5 years, and they're saying it's absolutely disrespectful, and this is, too long. This has been going on. And it's just like, have you played a sport? Like, have you played anything competitively in your life? Because I know there's a point, and I yell at my sister and plenty of other friends, where ever since the participation trophy came out, it's been this softness that has just driven me crazy. It's like, oh, well, you shouldn't talk bad to the other team. I'm like, that's tactics. Like, when I was playing nose guard, I smacked guys in the helmet. I told them, I'm going to do things to your mother tonight. Like,
hole. Yes.
Anything to get them off their game was my job. That was my job. When I was playing catcher in baseball, you think I wasn't talking shit to batters? I was doing it the whole time.
And the thing about it being disrespectful, you know what football is? Football is an opportunity to, if somebody disrespects you, you settle it on the field. You go out and you clean the guy's clock, okay? You sit there and you want to have a team sit there and congregate on the center logo or whatever, and you want to get an attitude about it. Don't sit there and cry about it. You're men. Get out there. You got pads on. You got an opportunity to make them regret that, okay? But do it the right way. Don't sit there and wait for some official to sit there and go, no, we can't do that today.
That's funny that you're sitting there talking about cleaning clocks. Like, I remember, I played tight end, right? And
safety.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I played safety and tight end, which is weird because I was a 6'6" safety. But anyhow, here's the thing. I had offensive linemen to one side of me, wide receivers to the other side of me. And I'd see cornerbacks that were bigger, faster, or bigger and stronger than the little wide receivers that we had. And the cornerbacks, you get that 2 yards, right, where you just be as physical as you want. And dude was just lighting up this wide receiver. And there's nothing he could do about it because he was just physically outmatched. Well, you know what? That's what teammates are for. So on the next play, he got lit up, right? Yep. I just turned and lit into him in that 2 yard period. And that wide receiver, the linebacker that was supposed to be covering me, had no business doing on that wide receiver anymore. And it was a touchdown because we decided that, you know what, we were going to take it into our own hands and give them their own medicine.
That's why you have a tight end lineup as a receiver, and you just have a take out them in the first 2 yards and just lay them out. We used to do that all the time.
And now you got, like you said, before you know it, there will be the Super Bowl champion trophy, and then there will be the participation trophies for everybody else. Everybody's going to get, in the next 5 years, you're going to see participation trophies for everybody because it's not fair.
Well, can I ask you a question real quick? Now, so on that note, we've talked about this. We all know what the deal is with that and how soft this BS is. Pat McAfee had a pretty good take on this whole thing about the situation with Joe Judge and that scrum that they had up there in the Meadowlands there. Mm-hmm. That's what happens in football. But then Danny Dimes has got nobody, and then he's making these guys go out there and do wind sprints Did you hear about that? Where they're making them go out after that fight where the quarterback got involved and everybody was just beating the snot out of each other. Coach is like, all right, everybody's doing hundreds.
Yes.
You're doing hundreds. Well, I'm done. I'm not putting. And you had like what 2 or 3 guys retire, say nope, I'm good. I'm out. I'm done. But I mean, that's what happens in football. So I feel like there's this real disconnect between the actual sport itself. We all played it. We all know the drill here, and what the expectations are. And he was talking about, about how the media wants to paint this out to be like a fairy tale world. And like there's a disconnect there somewhere. So
yeah. And some of these guys, I mean, let's be honest. Sometimes you're out there and you get, especially, in the trenches, you get out there or whatever. And I mean, you make contact with the guy and all of a sudden your knee gets cut out by somebody that you don't even see it, right? And that hurts. Okay. But now the thing is you need that energy. Because sometimes some of these things, you just want to sit there and be like, man, I remember one of the best lessons I ever learned was my sophomore year of high school. I go out there and I'm competing against these juniors and seniors, And I mean, I am outclassed, size, strength, intelligence, everything. Okay.
Not that age.
And the thing was I sat there and I kept getting put up against this guy and he just owned me. I mean, he owned me day after day. This guy owned me, but the thing was sooner, I went through this moment where I was like, okay, I'm not, I wouldn't, I get back in the, for the drill and I'd line up against this guy. And we did it 3 or 4 times. And I never once beat that guy that week. Okay. But the thing was I earned enough respect from these guys that they sat there and they took the time. They took the time to teach me and to take that part of the emotion whenever you're actually in the play, to take that part of the emotion, because what was happening was I was overcommitting myself. And then they basically were just using my energy and my momentum against me, okay? Yep. And once I learned that, and once I learned to stay disciplined and control, that didn't mean that after I was done, I didn't yell like a flipping lunatic because I finally beat the guy. I mean, it took me months. But the thing is once I finally did it, I knew up here that I could do it. I knew that I had the ability to do it. You know what I mean?
Well, but it takes experience and time,
Yeah.
Everyone wants that trophy now. Everyone wants that, I participated, so I should get something. No, you have to put an effort. You have to show that you are worth that trophy. And that's what I tell my nephews and nieces all the time. Don't be okay with mediocrity. Anything you do, try to do your best at it. Try it, and again, don't accept that participation award because that's just part of the problem.
How far is this taunting rule going to go? That's what I want to know. When the 12th man is out there talking trash to the offense, the opposing offense, some fan out there, does he get, ejected as well? Because that's where it sounds like it's going to end up leading, and that's what they're there for. That's what that's what home field advantage is about. Come on.
Again.
And you sat there and you talked about don't accept mediocrity. I just want to put this out there. Could you guys imagine if Chris Ballard sat there after the 2018 draft? Okay. I mean, I think we could all agree that it was a pretty special draft. Okay.
Yep.
So after the 2018 draft, if Chris Ballard just sat there and sat on the fact that, you know what? No, I drafted, Darius Leonard. I drafted Marlon Mack. I drafted Quentin Nelson. I don't need to continue to push myself to strive. Where would this team be? The Colts, we would just be, okay, we've got a good linebacker, a good guard, and a running back that we may not get to keep in 4 years. I mean, year after year, these guys have to push themselves. And even whenever they're successful, the following year, they've got to do the same exact thing. It's not like you can just sit there and say, okay, my work is done now after one play or 1 year.
Because this is the pinnacle. This is the pinnacle. You've got to constantly try to play king of the hill.
And to make more money, you got to make a splash. You need people to remember you. You get a sack and you just walk back to the line and no one congratulates you. Is more teams going to be looking at you next season? All of a sudden it's like, his contract's coming up. He was lighting things up. He was making a ton of noise. Let's throw him some money. we can buy him for more, you know. And speaking of talent, I didn't know if you wanted to go on to another topic, but I had another piece of news that would annoy the piss out of you guys.
Go ahead, Mr. Annoying.
Mr. Doug Hyde broke the news that contract for Michael Thomas trade is open and is very team friendly to a lot of teams. Would the Colts, Steelers, or anyone else be interested in Michael Thomas and be able to look away from his behavior situations?
Even outside of his behavioral situations, I mean, I'm not going to speak for the Steelers. I'll let the Steelers fan talk about that. But in my opinion, I think the NFL needs to be on alert because I think the Colts have got some really good receivers already. They are underestimating. We've been to the camp. We watched it. Oh, my goodness. You wait and watch. You'll see. It's scary. As long as they can stay healthy. That's the only issue. I mean, it seems like every other guy that goes out there ends up with a lower leg or foot injury. But, you know. What about the Steelers?
No, no way. But no way. We got too many other problems that we got to work on to deal with that noise. But to go back to what, to tie that into the Colts there, talking about Paris Campbell and how he's been looking at camp here lately and how this team with the Colts is falling together from my perspective after, hearing a lot of this stuff and after, having Jens out there seeing what these guys are doing at camp, from my perspective, from an outsider's perspective on that, I can't really see a reason why the Colts would want to do that. Basically, given their philosophy and everything we've been talking about with Chris Ballard, how he likes to do things. If I'm the Colts, there's no way I would do that. No way.
When you build within and you have the talent, I mean, Ballard's already went out there and talked about it. Even when the Julio Jones thing was out there, he's like, no, we haven't even contacted him because I think that, we have some really good in-house receivers. We don't need extra. We don't need obviously the locker room was a big deal, establishing a certain culture in the locker room for the first few years of Ballard was here. Now, he straight said, I think our locker room is now at that point where I would be okay with going and grabbing somebody if I needed to that had that kind of issue that needed, a locker room to kind of corral them in. Yeah, our locker room is at that point now. But
there's 31 other guys telling you you're doing something stupid, you're gonna listen usually pretty quickly.
Yeah,
because there's almost like a government within a team where it's just the players, where there's, you gotta answer to someone.
Yep.
And let's just say, just because you have the biggest paycheck doesn't mean you're the biggest dog in the locker room.
Most of the trash talk in the locker room happens in the showers. That's where you get, that's because it's, a man grooming himself, and then it just, so, hey, let's bring in a female reporter while this guy's with a towel Chuck, around his, junk. I mean, come on, dude.
Chuck, what's your perspective on this? Do you think Thomas will find another team, or is this just more BS and to try to drive up his value? And would this be a negative effect on a lot of teams that are already situated? Is that saying to your wide receiver core, you're not good enough at some point?
Well, and let's be honest. I mean, we've seen it year after year. These guys can go out there and do quite a bit of undesirable behaviors or whatever. There's always going to be a team that's willing to take the talent and think that they can coach past that and deal with, I mean, I'll be honest with you, after the whole Antonio Brown thing leaving Pittsburgh, I was like, wow, that's crazy. But then the Raiders turn around. And then after that, I'm like, I honestly thought, I was like, okay, there's no way a team will ever, you know what? So to sit there and say that I don't think that he's going to, yes, I think he's not going to ever have any problem because there's no arguing that the kid's talented. Okay. Yeah. There's no arguing that, he has gifts and can offer a team a lot of things. But like you said, there again, I think that has to be a veteran strong team, or at least a team with a very strong locker room. And,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, there's always, you know, talent's always going to over trump people showing their ass. Sorry, but showing over, you know, showing over that. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Because there's always teams that are so hungry just for that win. But yeah,
Oh,
as far as
absolutely.
the Colts, I agree with everybody. I think Ballard, and the thing was, is, you know, Ballard sat there and said, you know, we've got a lot of talent, young talent and stuff. And when I heard that at first, I was thinking, okay, Michael Pittman and Paris Campbell and Zach Pascal. But I'll tell you what, guys, I am not, this is not me going out there being a homer or anything, okay? Watching training camp as many days as I have this year, I mean, there is names on my tongue now, you know, Tyler Vaughn, Tariq Black, you know, DeMichael Harris, hopefully if he gets healthy, Ashton Doolin. I mean, you know, these weren't names that I thought that, you know, that
Michael Strawn.
Oh yeah, yeah. If you want to go there, I mean, and these are young men that they don't just, you know, oh, there's a flash play and then you don't hear from them the rest of the day. No, I mean, I think, you know, some of the recordings, I sit there and I'm just laughing going, okay, Strawn just owned Xavier Rhodes on this play. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everybody went in hyping that, you know, it was either going to be, at least a lot of the local people have been saying, you know, that it was either going to be Des Patman or it was going to be Michael Strawn. Well, you know what?
Hey.
I respect their opinion, but I'll tell you right now, this is more than a 2-horse race. I mean, we really do have a lot of young men out there that are showing flashes after flashes. And I understand that, you know, you've got some of this offensive friendly and shells and stuff, but you still have to go out and you still have to get open. You still have to make the catch. You know what I mean? It's been
Kurt
awesome
Warner
to
was
see
bagging groceries at one point.
Yeah.
Before he played in the NFL.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Kurt Warner.
Yeah.
Quarterback Rams when he won that Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Again, it doesn't matter where you came from. It's what you put onto that field. I don't care if you were drafted first or in the last possible round. At the end of the day, we wouldn't have some of the greatest players we have ever seen enter the NFL if we only thought about the first and second round draft picks or even the unselected free agents.
Yeah.
How many amazing talents came in the NFL or inspired other amazing talents because they came up and through that way? You know?
I'll tell you how you're going to be able to tell how deep and good your team is after preseason is over and the cuts down to 53 happens. If there's other teams that jump into that and grab your guys before you're able to sign them to practice squad, that tells you how good and deep your team in specific areas are.
Hurts my soul every year because
Mm-hmm.
I see these guys through practice, training camp, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, they were almost there. They were just there. They might need one more year, and now they're going to go to another organization and be solid.
Yep. What's up, Joe? I see you.
No, I agree with you. I mean, I agree. That was a great point that you just brought up about the practice squad and how, because you see that, obviously every year. But no, that's a great point about how other teams are coming and looking at your guys before you can put them on the practice squad.
Mm-hmm.
You might have done something right that year. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
exactly.
I'll tell you right now, I think you're going to see that from the Colts in the defensive line. I think we're going to see some guys we're going to be watching them in different jerseys this year because we just have so many young men that are really, there's just not enough roster spots for it. You know what I mean?
No.
And the same with the receiver field,
Mm-hmm.
unless you want to just sit there and load your roster full of D-line and receivers and forget about the other positions.
But
we're sitting here talking about all. Go ahead.
You'd be like Denver, who has a dozen cornerbacks right now before the start of the season. Did you see how many cornerbacks they got on their roster?
Well, I mean,
or Texans with running backs.
Now, I mean, we have like 7 running backs on the roster, but I mean that's part of the 90-man roster, you know. And the Colts ain't going to carry more than 4. I'll guarantee it. Especially the way Marlon Mack is running right now, I would not be surprised if the Colts only carry 3 on the 53 and try to sneak one on the practice squad, you know, because it's very good running back core. That's obvious. So everybody around knows. I mean, it's listed as one of the top 5 in the NFL.
Well, but it's also what your team specializes in too. If your team is run heavy like mine, you almost have to have a 6 running back stable at some point because again, how many of our running backs got injured in the last 2 years? It's a ridiculous amount, but they go down and they go down hard when they do.
I wouldn't say the Patriots specialize in running. I'm of the
last
mind.
Couple of years.
I'm just of the mind that if you hand Bill Belichick a pile of crap, he's going to bake a cake with it, no matter what you give him.
Yeah,
I mean, pretty much. I mean, the guy's a genius. I mean, he is just.
Well,
love him, hate him, whatever. But
he just again the reason he rubs people the wrong way. He's going to give his team any opportunity to win. He doesn't care.
Yeah.
Like from putting thermostats in the opposing team's locker room to let them know how cold it is all the time, to the tuck rule, to all these other things. Like part of the reason why there were so many rule changes over the last 20 years is people like Belichick. And I'm not saying Belichick is the only Belichick guy. You got the kid from the 49ers. You got, your coach from the Colts. There's reason these things happen because a great coach is going to be the person that always puts their team, no matter what it is, in a chance for victory,
Mm-hmm.
But that's going to rub people the wrong way, and that is what it is.
Something I've noticed, and that's because, like I said, I've been getting more into the Patriots and watching how things are going there. I think that outside of the New England fan base and stuff, I think, yes, there's a strong desire to beat New England. There's a strong desire to see them fail. Okay, I'm not denying that. But there's also a strong level of respect. You know who I think hates or is angry at Belichick more than anybody? And that's the 50%ers that, want to sit there and create this divide of, is it Brady
mostly
or is it
Patriots
Belichick?
fans.
Huh?
Half the Patriots population is a fan base.
Yeah.
There's a portion of them that blame him. Like, ever since Tom Brady left, the amount of defectors has been unreal. They want Belichick's head. They don't think he appreciated the god that is Tom Brady. And legitimately, look up just Patriots Twitter, okay? You'll see some of the worst takes you've ever heard because of Tom Brady leaving. He was going to leave. He was wanting to leave since 2018. He wanted to forge his own destiny. That's fine. Again, I will forgive Brady, but I will not forgive Gronk. That's a whole other story. But at the end of the day, Tom Brady was going to go because at the end, we could not afford to get him the talent they want because we were in dire straits, and Tom Brady did not want to wait around. And what's the best time to win a Super Bowl? Is a year when Bill Belichick has no weapons. What was 2019, 2020, Tom Brady, I'm sorry, but he gave up on 2019. That's my opinion. Again, people are going to flame me alive for that, but whatever.
No,
I believe he was ready to go.
I agree with you on that. I do.
So I got a
You
question.
worked with anyone for 20 years. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
What do you guys think of this, them adopting the rule that they had last year, with the injured reserve in 3 weeks? Do you think that's going to become
a norm?
Permanent? Yeah.
I think it's one of those things where they'll come up with a rule, see if it works for a season. If it doesn't work, they're going to quickly pretend like it never happened.
Go ahead, Joe.
This will be the second season that they've had it, though. And
yeah, they had it the first season.
Last year also.
They made it because of the COVID situation.
I just like being able to protect a certain number of your practice squad guys. I think those are 2 extraordinary rules that I hope the league, especially if they're expounding to, I know we're 17 games this year, but I think everybody's pretty much realizing that, within the next couple of years, we're going to be at 18 games. You know what I mean? I think that the fact that you can sit there and and have an unlimited amount of people if they're on injured reserve doesn't mean that their season's over and stuff. I like that. I was curious what you guys
it's like
thought.
when they made Denver play last season because they didn't have a quarterback one game. They legitimately did not have a quarterback. And that wasn't their fault. That was the fault of the team they played prior. But they were like, no, the game has to go on. You know why? Because they're going up against the Chiefs. And again, there's always a darling of the NFL. And currently right now it's Mahomes and the Chiefs.
No, there was a couple rules that got changed last year. There's a couple rules that got changed last year due to the COVID. One was the IR situation, where you can put someone on there, and then 3 weeks later you could take them off. That was basically because of COVID, and also they expanded the practice squad because of COVID as well. That way you had more guys that you could bring up if you needed to, and you could actually name people on your practice squad that could not be headhunted by other teams. I think it was up to 4 or 5 that you could do that with. And I actually like that. I like that idea. I think at least 2. I think every year, I think there should be a rule that you could name 2 guys on your practice squad and say, another team cannot sign them to their team off our practice squad. Because you get like a third round tender or something like that, or 4th round. I'd say a 4th or 5th round tender, because if they're on your practice squad, they're not a 2nd round guy, that's for sure. But they might be there for a reason. You had to go light on your run. You had to go light in a certain position, and if you end up having injuries or something, then you gotta pull them up. I think that's a situation where you should be allowed to name guys, at least 2, I think. I think that's about a sweet spot. But anyone else on that practice squad, another team can sign you onto their team. Now, they have to sign you directly to their 53-man, and they have to be there for 3 weeks. But you can headhunt guys right off somebody else's practice squad. But you got to sign them to your 53. You can't just sideways practice squad to practice squad. That's you can't do that.
Now, the only thing I would like to see them do is if they're securing these young men, okay, then I feel like if they're on that practice squad and they can't be taken to another team, I feel like they ought to be compensated in some format. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You know how
just some type of safety blanket.
Yeah, because you're sort of stunning their development, or you know what I mean, because they may be able to go to another team and pick up second string, reps and stuff. So I guess what I'm saying is that I like the rule. I do feel like that they need to be compensated if they're going to be put on that protected list, just for the simple fact that their opportunities will be limited versus, like, for example, okay,
they get twice as much pay rather than the $15K a game. Practice squad, maybe you give them $30K a game, or whatever, something.
I mean, just something that they're being rewarded for, their forced loyalty, I guess you'd call it.
Well, I'm not even that, but I agree with what LO was talking about. Is a great point, because I keep calling him LO. I should be calling him Lawman.
I don't. Law. It's all good.
Lawman. I don't know. I don't know why. It's weird. Anyway. But that's a great point, especially now because with the talent you see coming out of college. And I mean, college football, I don't even know if I even really want to. I probably shouldn't even have mentioned it, to be honest with you, with all the issues that I have with the way the state of the sport right now. Texas and Oklahoma in the SEC, are you kidding me? Where are they going to put the Mountaineers? They better put them in the ACC, or probably not. They're probably going to end up. That's probably going to be it for them in terms of Power 5 and whatever. But whatever. Blah, 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 blah. We still got basketball. Yeah, I mean, it's that bad. It's like that bad with the TV markets and the media and the way all this crap works out. Now you got like 3 different interior linemen, from Ohio State in the running for that trophy. I can't remember the name of it already. Before anybody's even played a snap. but there's a lot of talent coming out of college. Football is becoming more and more and more predominant.
Mm-hmm.
It has been America's sport for some time now, and here we go. Football. I mean, you got NFL players coming from Slippery Rock now, for crying out loud. Excuse me. I mean, which is where I played. So it's like, I think that's a good thing to have a slightly bigger roster, because these kids. The other thing about it is, these kids in college, they dedicate their entire. Half of them go to these colleges just because they play football. And it's like, what are you going to do? The jokes back in my day. Oh yeah, well, just have them take a basket weaving class, and get them through. If he's on a scholarship, you know what I mean? Some of that crap I took in college was kind of.
Well, it's my annoyance with colleges is like they don't prepare you for the real world sometimes. It's like, can there be a class for balancing your checkbook or balancing your budgeting or auto mechanics just to do your own oil change? There are skills that are lacking in today's kids that drive me nuts.
Yes.
Like, you don't even know how to hold a hammer. How are you ready for this world?
Yeah.
Hey,
Hammers have triggers, don't they?
I want to shout out KDC City. He is in here, Patreon supporter. Did ask a question: is the Colts having joint practice tomorrow? They had it today, but it was shortened.
It wasn't a joint practice today.
I thought it was a joint. No, it wasn't. No, they are having one tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow's the first
Thursday
one.
And Friday from 4 to 6.
Yep, they are having it. Now, I don't know if it'll be outdoors. I don't know, because, there's that whole rain thing. It didn't rain during practice today, but they shut it down late last night. And there was guys that came from out of state, got a hotel room in Indianapolis to go to practice today. And then at like 10:30 at night, the Colts were like, well, it might rain tomorrow, so we're going to bring it indoors no matter what, and we're going to shut down, Colt City. So that sucked for them. So that was Derek Larger from Bring the Juice. He actually did that, and it sucks.
On Twitter,
yeah. But yeah, KDC City. Yeah, they're going to have the joint practice tomorrow. It'll be fun. I can't wait to see some of the reports on it. I wish I could go, but I can't. I'm not allowed. I could, but it's starting to get a little bit more brown. My face is still a little bit red, though. My arms, too.
No, I won't be able to do it. I won't be able to go tomorrow because my father-in-law's hopefully going to get out of the hospital. But
good luck on that.
Absolutely. Godspeed.
Friday, if he's home and safe and everything, I'm going to do everything I can to get up there and let you guys know what I'm seeing.
Yeah, I'd like to, but I'd have to have long sleeves, and as hot as it's been the past couple weeks, I don't want to go with long sleeves and stuff like that. I would cook under that sun. Especially in the bleachers and the metal bleachers and everything, and under that sun, you unless you go, see, it's not the same. Like, okay, yeah, we've all been to like high school games where you're sitting in the metal bleachers, but it's like at 7:00 at night, and it's cooled down. The sun ain't blaring directly on you. These practices, the sun is directly overhead, and it's reflecting off these metal bleachers, and it does this to you if you're not used to it. KDC City says, I can't wait to see how good the defense actually is against another team, and I 100%. I want to see what that D-line can do. I want to see what...
Yep.
See, we're getting into Panthers practices, right?
Yes, that's what we're talking about.
All right.
And another thing, I want to see Ellinger and Eason play against another defense, because people want to talk about, well, your quarterback's doing this way, your quarterback's doing that way. People forget the Colts was a really good defense last year, and have been. How would they do against a different team, practice-wise? Because, if you're, got a really, really good pass defense, like let's say you're like the Patriots or the Steelers, you know, you guys you have playmakers there. You don't expect the quarterbacks to have great games against really good pass defenses, or be able to scramble around against a hardcore, you know, pressure team, you know, that can get to the quarterback quick or something like that. You don't expect that stuff. And with the Colts, I want to know, you know, is it more the defense doing really good, or is the, you know, the quarterbacks doing, you know, good or bad? Frankly, the quarterbacks have been doing pretty decent. And if it's against a good defense and they're doing decent, then, and especially their redshirt freshman and a freshman, basically, rookie, then, you know, that speaks volumes to me. That means that they're progressing really well. But seeing them against another team and another team's defense, that's going to be fun. That's going to be a lot of fun. And, I mean, last year the Colts defense intercepted Sam Darnold 3 times, sacked him 5 times. What's it going to be like with the Panthers around him instead of the Jets? That's something else I want to see.
Yeah. Something else I was really hoping to see was I wanted to see how our D-line did against the run. Because, I mean, the Panthers are a very quality, and I really wanted to see what our young rookie looked like, but I don't think that's going to get to happen after today because he went down with an ankle, and we're not sure.
No, it's a sprain. It's a sprain. Yep, Quiddy Pay. Yep.
Oh, come on. You got to be kidding.
That's what I was saying. Foot injuries all over the place in Indy. He rolled his ankle today.
Well, it's already the Achilles recovery capital of the world, but I mean,
there's a reason.
Oh my God!
It's Rex Ryan's nightmare. All those feet getting injured.
Yeah. So, but it's just a sprain. It's not nothing serious. He might be out a couple of weeks or a couple of days. They were talking about it's going to be a day-to-day thing. So I'm okay with it. You know, and generally with a sprain, you could drop a air cast around it and you're good to go. You know, so.
But yeah, I'm very very interested to see how you know guys I wanted to see was Isaac Rochelle, Tyquan Lewis, and Quiddy Pay. I wanted to see how these 3 guys work together and how they fared against the run, because I feel like our pass defense is going, you know, from the line, I think is going to be very solid from what I've seen from Kamoko Toure this year. I mean, he has come out and really looks like he is on board and feeling good.
He looks like 2019. He looks like what he did in 2019, right up until he got injured at the end of the Kansas City game.
He's sort of stiff whenever you watch him during warm-ups and stuff. It's like, man, I just don't, you know. But I'll tell you what, when he gets out on that field, he's got some bend with the speed. It's awesome.
Yeah, he is. He's something special. He's a talent. Go ahead, man.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I mean, if Pay goes down, I mean, there kind of goes my whole season because, I mean, I was pushing for them to get that guy. Pushing. Yeah, I mean, because he's just got everything. He's the raw talent, all the other crap you can coach. You know, it's just like Carson Wentz with his footwork. You can fix that. Everything below the legs can be, or below the waist can be fixed.
Yes,
well, I'm telling you what,
you know what I mean? He's got everything.
If you've seen this kid come off the line, I mean,
it's stupid.
There's certain guys when you watch them and stuff, you know, and you see them take off, and you're just like, okay, you know. And then there's other guys that you see that just, I mean, you can almost feel. I mean, you can almost feel the, you know, I mean, the explosion. And
Julius Peppers.
Yeah, that's a great comparison.
Young Julius Peppers.
That's a great comparison, buddy. That's how a similar style. I mean, but so what's interesting to me about Quiddy Pay is, like, you know, you talk about how he doesn't have those extra moves or whatever, but that kind of is what makes him kind of special. Because if he does start to develop those extra moves in practice and whatever, and he keeps that fundamental just bull rush, and then all of a sudden, yeah, you know what? No, we're gonna flip the script here, and that's how you get around people. And if he keeps that kind of ace up his sleeve, so to speak, I think he's one of those guys that's going to be able to do all of that. I really believe that with his intelligence. I mean, the character that the kid has. I mean, I would really like to see him have a really long career, even though he came from Michigan. Okay.
Well, to be fair, he was the only.
I'm just going to forget that ever happened.
He was the only defensive player in that front seven for Michigan, anyhow, last year. So
Yeah.
I mean,
hey, are you guys
literally.
getting any of my feedback through the headset?
Nope.
You're not getting any other voices through it?
Nope.
Okay.
I'm good to go.
Nope.
Because I got another thing running, but nothing on you guys.
Yeah, KDC City says it, and we still haven't seen what Dio can bring, and it's true, and we won't probably see it until reports come out that he's practicing maybe midway through this upcoming season. I still like the Dio pick because, you know, he was considered to be a first-round pick before he got injured, you know, and we probably won't have a first-round pick this year, so you know, it's stacking up talent where you can, and I think that was a smart move by Ballard in doing that. But yeah, I get what you say. That you love how the defense could develop in the next 2 years. Well, let's see what it looks like this year, because we got a lot of young guys that have starting to kind of come into their own. You know, and that's what I'm waiting on.
Talent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Ballard has really done a super job this year of creating excellent competition. I mean, you know, there's some signings, you know, the Isaac Rochelle's and the Antoine Woods and stuff that you're like, okay, I can see. But no, I mean, I'm watching these guys, and I mean, you could see the push. You can see the competition. I mean, I'm not saying that Grover or DeForest is looking over their shoulder worried or anything, okay? But, I mean, you can see them elevating the effort and stuff, and it's just, I mean, our defense is so based on effort and speed. It's like
and tenacity.
Yeah.
And that's my concern when we start getting this taunting crap. Is we start taking away the fire in people. You know, like so many teams are just based on that. Where would Ray Lewis have been if he didn't have his fire? Like, dude, some of the greatest defensive players. Look at that kid from
walking out the tunnel, he'd be thrown out the game.
Yeah, so you go from being a leader. So you go from being a leader in a locker room to being the idiot who was responsible for 200 penalty yards that season. I mean, but on your point, Alo, about the pick, I mean, I think a lot of people were shocked by that.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it goes back to what you were talking about with Ballard earlier, and how he's obviously seeing something. I mean, this dude is like tuned in. He is like so tuned in. So in terms of the original topic, the two extensions that were given out today, I couldn't imagine two better guys for the job, and that's kind of the reason why. Like the Dio pick, everybody's like, "Oh my God, why would you do that?" Well, obviously they're seeing something that, is telling them, we need to double down here. We need to double down here.
Well, Dio was considered the one, again, like Darius Leonard from 2018. They were, so many people. Dio's the worst pick of the draft because not only did you double down on pass rush, but the second guy you got probably won't even play this year,
Hey. As long as it turns out like the last worst pick he took.
Right.
Leonard? You're talking about Leonard, right? Yep. Yeah. Oh, my God. And look
I have
a funny... Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, okay. My question is I guess, I don't know if you guys have heard, but Carson and Quentin have both been seen at practice the last 2 days. No boot, no limp. Well, in Quentin's defense, he's got this weird gait, so I'm not sure if he's limping or if he's just methodically plodding through. But But the thing is okay. Carson Wentz.
No big deal.
Say Carson Wentz. What will 2 weeks be? Right after the preseason game, right? After the first game, he'll be 2 weeks in.
Next Monday.
Okay. Now I'm not saying that the Colts are going to be putting him out on practice field or anything, but do you think that Carson can get enough reps, whether it's mental or physical, to be ready for week 1 is my question. Because
now,
I'll tell you right now, they've always said this was pain management. And what I saw, not today, but yesterday, I mean, Carson, I'm not exaggerating. I sat there and watched him hop up and down a couple times and laughing with the guys and stuff. So, I mean, this wasn't just a simple, he's, taking baby. I mean, he looked like he wasn't feeling anything. Now, I don't know if that's me just hoping for the best, but do you think that there's, with this injury and with what we know from what, we've heard from the doctors and Coach Reich, do you think Carson has enough time where he's ready for week 1?
See, that's funny because KDC City actually asked that question right as you was talking, and in my opinion, right after that got done, you saw that, and then Frank Reich was questioned about it, and Reich said, "Yeah, I seen that bleach."
Sorry, buddy, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Sorry.
That's good. It's all good, man. But yeah, he was asked, and Frank said right now he's trending towards being able to start week 1. He's trending that way. I did a video. I uploaded it today. I don't know if anyone watched it, but hey, you know what? If he's out there able to walk around and move around on it already inside a week of after having surgery,
he's
to
on
me
crutches.
That's speaking volumes. No boot, no cast, no nothing. He might have some padding right there, between the stitches and, his sock probably. I mean, obviously something like that. But, I mean, if you're walking around without any kind of extra help right now already, now it's all about waiting long enough where the stitches will be able to, it'll heal up enough to where, you're not worried about busting stitches, right, when you're moving on it. Let's say he starts practicing in a couple weeks and say he's got 2 weeks of practice before the season starts, week 1. I'd say he'd be able to start week 1. Well, first off, you have to practice 2 full weeks in the NFL before you could play in a season. That's a rule, period.
But this is not Carson's first rodeo either. It's not like he got like a first-round draft pick from another team like from the year prior. This guy's been in the NFL. He knows what's expected of him. And
he's been throwing around with guys all off season, right? That is another big thing.
Yep. And he's already familiar with the base concept of our offense. I mean, I understand there's new wrinkles and stuff, but I mean, the learning curve, I would have to believe is, minimal by this point, because it's not like he wasn't plugged into meetings and all that. And I sit there and I think about last year and all the Zoom meetings and watching Phillip Rivers and, I mean, I just feel like, and like I said, I don't know, I'm not trying to overhype it, but I just feel like that it's going to happen. I'm more worried about putting Quentin out there just for the position that he plays. And I mean, because now you've got all them extra feet around. You've got all that extra pressure on that foot and stuff.
And when he's blocking, that's 600 pounds of pressure on a foot. Think about that, because he's 330 pounds, and then you got another 300-pound guy he's probably blocking as a defensive tackle, plus whatever leverage, So you got a lot of weight on that foot. I'm with you right there, Loyalist. I'm more worried about Quentin not being able to start even though Quentin Nelson's already said I'm starting week 1. He said that, but that don't mean nothing, I just telling you that Quentin, is determined to do it, but the Colts will stop him if need be, if they feel like, you know what, you're going to injure yourself if you go out there. when you got a guy like Quentin Nelson, you do not take chances with him when it comes to health. Period.
Okay.
End of story.
Yeah,
Let's
grab
say-
a SWAT
okay,
team
let's
and
say
tell
the
that.
Colts-
Grab a SWAT team and tell that man he's not going to start.
Right.
Well, but
let's
here's
say
the other
Colts
thing.
say, okay, the Q's not ready. Do you hold off putting Carson in
No.
until the line is more solid?
No. Dude, I don't care. Quentin Nelson, Ryan Kelly, and your whole offensive line is backups. It can't be as bad as what he dealt with in Philadelphia last year.
Now, Danny Pinter and Chris Reed have looked really good out there.
Yeah.
As far as backup, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, but
I'm more
but the
worried
work
about the
doesn't.
tackle spot, like I said. I was cringing the other day. I seen Julian Davenport running with the ones, and I was just like, "Are we really doing this?"
Be right back.
All good, Manning.
From my perspective on that, I feel like the injury between Quentin Nelson and Carson Wentz has a little bit different characterization to it.
Mm-hmm.
From what it sounds like to me is that Nelson's injury is fresh. So I am going to have more concerns on the injury side with Nelson than I would have with Wentz because it's a fresh injury. When it comes to Wentz, that's a lingering injury that he's had for a long time.
Like 15 years.
Yeah, bro. I mean, that's what I'm talking about. This goes all the way back to like his high school. If you look at his footwork, that's always been there. That left foot doesn't want to kick out. So now, oh wow, they finally cleaned this up. It's like that old little kid story about the lion with the thorn in its side.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like he finally got that out of there. But then you got another set of problems coming out of that. Now, how are those muscles going to react when he can finally properly use the other muscles that have been compensating for that injury all these years?
Mm-hmm.
How is that going to react? Because sometimes that takes a while. I mean, when I went in to get my lung operated on, I came out. It took me 2 months to get right again because all my guts and everything had to readjust to everything. I mean, so it's the same thing. Like when you get, when you break a bone or something, or you have a sciatic nerve or any of that kind of crap, or a busted knee, and other muscles start compensating for other muscles. So how's that gonna transpire? That's really the only concern I have with Carson Wentz at this point. So how's that gonna look, and how's that gonna affect his ball? So he's already established a chemistry with his wide receivers based on what he's had to work with at this point. Is it going to just be a seamless transition and he's just going to, this is a lot easier? Or is his body going to have to relearn things? That's the only concern I have with that.
That's an interesting point. Go ahead.
My thing with Wentz, though, is that when you're not playing, if you're injured or something else comes up, the preparation doesn't stop there. If you can't do it physically, you're going to be working mentally. We saw this with the Patriots. We've seen this with other teams. But when Patriots players go down, they're in that conference room reading the playbook. They're looking at team film. They're looking at things they can take advantage of. So I don't think it's not necessarily absolutely helpful that he's injured, but also instead of him throwing a football around, he's looking at game film and looking at his next opponent. That is just more time for preparation. It's like what they used to brag about Brady all the time. Like, he's already got the clicker in his hand. That's what Ray Lewis used to say. But the only way you can be prepared for someone like that is you have to be just as prepared. And I'm assuming right now that's what he's doing. He's got the clicker in his hand, and he's looking at that first team on the schedule. So at the end of the day, it gives me concern physically. But being game prepared, it actually might not be a terrible thing.
Yep.
Yeah,
guys,
but you know what? I bet a lot of the film that he's watching right now, I would bet is of the Colts receivers. I bet he's watching how T.Y. comes out of his break on this particular, and not to mention that he already knows, everything about what the play is and stuff. You know what I mean? So I think that this training camp, we're going to find out that all this adversity is actually going to help us long term in a deeper run this year, because I fully expect by week 2 that we've got the majority of our players back, barring injuries in week 1 or 2.
Guys, I have to end this. I just realized I got like 13 minutes before I have to join DPN. Okay. But yeah,
Sorry, buddy. Damn.
it's all good. We've been here almost 2 hours. Guys, I do want to say one thing. It'll be interesting to watch him during practice that he's been out there. Look where he's at when you're on 11 on 11s. If he's lined up behind where the quarterback is on the 11 on 11s, like he's good, 7-8 yards behind there, but like sitting there, he's taking mental reps, watching, as what you were saying, Loyalist, about the wide receivers and their routes and their little things that's going to happen. He's probably sitting there doing that kind of stuff, taking mental reps from a quarterback standpoint. So, let's keep an eye on that when we're out there watching, because that'd be something that I would be really interested in seeing. But guys, thank you, Ross. Thank you, Joe, for joining. Appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Good talking to you, boys.
Appreciate you, KDC City. Thanks for joining here. Don't forget, hit that like button, even though, there are only a few of us here, but please smash that like button so it'll help when I go.
Well, it's not public right now?
No, it will not be public until this time tomorrow. So, because, Patreon, it's a Patreon stream. Unlike the last time.
I got saucy questions for next time, boys.
Okay.
It'll be interesting.
Have a good one.
Boys.
Have a good one.
Fucking metal. I love you.
Yep.